what I would like to maybe pass on to your viewers too is I come across people that say, wow, you sound like you've lived an amazing life. I wish I could have done that. Or they'll say, I'm too old, to be able to go back and do some of these things. And I look at them and I say, you're not too old. There's no limit on signing up for some college courses, or you don't even have to get a degree. Just go to the library, pull some of these books out on topics that interest you and make yourself smart on it. Like, there's no limit. Certainly not an age limit. Don't think that it's too late. Like, it's never too late.
Welcome to the Bountiful Podcast, where we explore what it means to live a bountiful life. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Lindsay Kaldon, the Fission Surface Power Project Manager at NASA's Glenn Research Center. Lindsay's journey is a fascinating one. From growing up as a military brat with dreams of becoming an astronaut, to working on nuclear reactors that could one day power lunar and Martian bases. Her story is one of passion, resilience, and an unwavering desire to push the boundaries of science and technology. In this episode, we'll explore Lindsay's incredible career path, how she balances her work at NASA with her role as a nuclear technology instructor and a mum of four, and the lessons she's learned along the way about living life to the fullest, including her advice on seizing every opportunity and pursuing your dreams no matter your age or circumstance. She is someone who absolutely fizzes with energy, wishes she could have double the life expectancy so she could pursue careers in all of her passions, and as she would tell you, if you look at life like a lemon, you want to squeeze every single drop out of it. Lindsay, welcome to the Bountiful Podcast.
It's wonderful to be here. Thank you for this opportunity to talk to you today. And like you said, I love life so much. And if I could have 2 or 3 shots at it, I would definitely take that. I just have so many passions, and I can't seem to stop those passions. And I'm just grateful for every day that we have here. I have what I would consider a dream job at NASA. But then I also love to fly. And if I didn't have my NASA job, I would try to be pursuing a job with the airlines right now to fly full time. But I love life to its fullest. And I think people can see that, when they're around me. They say I have so much excitement, so much energy. And I love that because I want it to rub off on other people too. I want to inspire others, especially. One thing that I really love doing is spreading the word about STEM, science and technology, especially for the younger generation. And there are so many opportunities out there, things that weren't even a possibility when I was a young girl. But if I can get out there and just, whether it's going to schools, elementary schools, and handing out NASA stickers, just their face lights up because there's so many cool things on the horizon that they should definitely try to get into.
That sounds amazing. Can you tell me a bit more?
I will say, I was at a conference recently, and we were talking about space nuclear and its role today. And if you looked at some of the images that were presented on the screen, coming out of U.S. industry, it was like looking at a Star Wars or Star Trek episode, and I look at that and I think, oh my gosh, we're right there. We're on the cusp of this. We're developing things right now that were so far out in the future. Growing up and seeing these TV shows, you'd think, no way, there's no way. But we're actually testing some of these things right now, and it's the perfect time to get into these groundbreaking efforts. Another thing right now that I love to share when I go out and I speak to the public and kind of promote and talk about this project that I manage, Fission Surface Power, is I start off talking about the Artemis missions, which are coming up. And we already have Artemis 1 underway, but Artemis 2 and Artemis 3 are soon to come. Artemis 3 is the really exciting one. That's where we're going to go back to the moon and step foot on it for the first time in over 50 years. And we'll be sending the first person of color, the first international partner, and the first female up there. And so it's such an exciting time. And I tell the young kids in the audience, I say, you guys are the Artemis generation. That's pretty amazing. You know, we had Apollo back decades ago, but now this is the Artemis generation. And I think it's a really exciting time, and you can see they smile, you know, and it's just, I love that. I just love spreading the word about what we're doing at NASA and the things that are to come. It's really exciting.
It is so exciting. And I guess one of the many reasons why I'm stoked to have you on the Bountiful podcast today, your enthusiasm is absolutely infectious. We're definitely a long way away from New Zealand right now, recording just down the road from the Glenn Research Centre here in Cleveland, Ohio. Can you share with me what it means to you to live a bountiful life?
Yes. I think, you know, we talked before, I try to squeeze like every last drop out of life that I can. And what I would like to maybe pass on to your viewers too is I come across people that say, wow, you know, you sound like you've lived an amazing life. I wish I could have done that. Or, you know, they'll say, I'm too old, you know, to be able to go back and do some of these things. And I look at them and I say, you're not too old. You know, even if they're 85 years old, you're not too old. You know, go, like, there's no limit on signing up for some college courses or just, you don't even have to get a degree, just go to the library, you know, pull some of these books out on topics that interest you and make yourself smart on it. Like, there's no limit, certainly not an age limit to me. Like, don't think that it's too late. Like, it's never too late. And pursue your dreams. If you've had the dream of doing things in space, then whether it's join an astronomy club or even flying, you know, like, go take a discovery flight if you have a dream to get up there someday. I think most airports offer that, a discovery flight, just to get up and see if you like it. And I know pilots that are 90 years old and older that are still getting up there, you know, and I just don't let age be a limit. There are so many opportunities out there, and if you have dreams, pursue them, and don't let things hold you back.
I absolutely love that, and I just couldn't agree more. Life is for living, full stop. I have two observations on this one. One is that people pause their living until later in life, and then also the inverse. They behave like life is over after 70 or 60 or 70. I'm definitely of the camp that life should be lived every single day. You never want to have regrets. So if you have dreams, go do them. Reflect and think about what you're interested in and how you move towards it, and then how to make it happen. I wish more people knew and were comfortable with going back to the drawing board and starting again. I find that whole process of learning new things and acquiring new skills and knowledge so incredibly exciting, almost like you're a little toddler again, looking at all this new information.
It is. And I feel the same way. That's how I look at it. It wasn't until I was 41 years old that I decided I was going to get my pilot's license finally, you know, and some people might have looked at me like, oh, you're too old to do that. But no, I don't think I am. And I felt that same way. I went to an air show and I saw the people flying in. I went to Oshkosh, big fly-in every year. And I just saw the people coming in and camping under their airplane. And I thought, I want to do that, you know? And so I was like the kid, you know, I was going to do what it took to do it or at least try until I was literally told, no, you can't do that, you know, but I've never really come across that where if you start going down a track that somebody says, no, it's too late. I've never come across that. And I see that even, I haven't hit my astronaut era yet, right? Like that is still a dream of mine. I feel like I've been able to accomplish a lot of the things I set out to do in life. And for me, I still really want to be an astronaut someday. And maybe, I don't know, I don't see an age limit necessarily on the NASA website unless I just haven't found the right thing yet, but I have the heart for it. And I'm gonna apply, and I'm gonna apply every time it comes up. And I hope that comes off, like rubs off on other people too. I want them to apply. if they want to be an astronaut, like do it, and
I mean, your experience today would be pretty valuable.
yeah, well, I hope so. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But if they come back and say no, which there might be a chance that they'll do that, then I would try again, until somebody tells me you literally are too old to do it. No more applying, Lindsay. But I don't feel like that will happen, and I'm just gonna keep doing it. And I think it's inspiring to my kids even. They see I don't give up on it, and I try to tell them, you want to pursue this, do it.
Just listening to you seem so positive and so excited. Not everyone is born with this level of, natural enthusiasm. Where do you think that comes from?
I think it probably comes from my growing up, just the experiences I got to see, got to travel all over the country, and even internationally too. So I grew up a military brat, and there's nothing negative about that term. To me, it was a very exciting time. It was hard, sure, to pick up and have to move all the time. And I wasn't able to really get a lot of those really strong friendships that you would get if you stayed in one town for, most of your life. So I would have to pick up and move, and that was difficult. But looking back at it now, just, you have challenges, but you overcome those challenges and you find ways to adapt, and you get to meet a lot of different types of people. And I think that's where I came to learn, not to learn, but to really love life so much, is I got to see all these different places. We lived in a number of states growing up. I was born out west in Idaho, and my dad joined the Air Force, and we lived mostly out west, but we also got to go up to Alaska 2 times and got to drive through Canada, every time we'd go visit relatives down in the lower 48, they called it. And just to have that experience was amazing. And growing up, I'd get jobs, especially when we lived in Alaska, working at really crazy places like the Santa Claus house in North Pole, Alaska. And so you'd get these bus loads full of people from all over the country that come in off the cruise lines and stuff. And so I got to talk to them. And I think just being exposed to so many different personalities and so many people, and their enthusiasm would rub off on me. And so I always try to find the best in everybody and the best in every situation, and it's stuck with me, and it's helped me through the years, and able to work with very diverse teams that we have at NASA, and with my own background, I did end up joining the Air Force myself, and just the amazing groups of people that we have pulling together, trying to accomplish great things. That inspires me, and I think you get more out of stuff when you can go in with a positive attitude.
Can you tell me how you see the world?
Yes. The first thing that comes to mind is the world is beautiful. I love it so much. Just physical beauty, and then the people that make up the world. And I know that there's a lot of sadness in the world, but I think if you take a step back and look at all that we've accomplished as a society, and even looking back through time and history, is quite amazing.
Yeah.
And there are things that we're discovering. We find even, I don't know, I even think of when they discover a lost cave, and they go in it and they see these beautiful, amazing crystals, or if there's archaeologists and they discover a civilization that we didn't know about. And it's a little bit of what's still out there for us to discover and to learn and to find. And I think maybe it's just, I don't know, I just find the world beautiful. And I try not to, I'm a very optimistic person, if you haven't picked up on that right now, but I just think there's so much we're still yet to get going and to invent and to accomplish. Someday, maybe we will be living on other planets, and at least getting back to the moon is it's the first step, and it's exciting. So I guess I'd tell the the audience listening to be on the lookout for what we're going to accomplish with Artemis, and getting that presence back there on the moon, and learning from that, and then moving on to Mars someday.
That is so inspiring, that's for sure. What advice would you give your 25-year-old self?
I would say don't give up on the dream. And for me, I guess I have many dreams, but don't give up on wanting to be an astronaut someday. Because 25 years old, let's see where I was. I had just, I was either just getting out of the military, or I had gotten in the military, but that I wanted to be an astronaut. That's why I went in the Air Force, and it didn't quite work out that way. But and maybe at the time I thought, it just, that kind of went to the wayside, the space aspect of it. I got to work on the U2, and that was all my focus and attention, and I loved it. And I put my love into everything I'm working on in the moment. But looking, now I'm working for NASA, and I love that so much. And I'm so close. I feel like I'm so close. And even if I don't get to be an astronaut someday, I could die happy tomorrow, because I've got to live this life doing a space mission, at least trying to help develop a reactor for the moon someday. I went through a time when I got my undergraduate degree, life got in the way, and I didn't necessarily have perfect grades coming out of my bachelor's program. And I thought, oh, this is the end. Like, there's no way I'm going to get into a good school for my master's. I'm not good enough for it, because I kind of goofed off a little bit when I got my bachelor's. Life just gets in the way. You date, and you don't focus as much on your studies when you're younger. And well, at least I didn't. I probably should have applied myself more, but
I think you're doing fine.
Well, and that's the difference, is I could have given up right then and there, and thought, I'm not going to be good enough, and I'm not going to be able to have successes later in life because I screwed up. With my like I said, my GPA wasn't stellar, but you know what? I joined the Air Force, and just the experiences I got to do through that. When it was time to use my GI Bill, I applied. I got into the program. I was on probation for the first year. They wanted to make sure that my grades could be kept up. And in the end, I had one of the highest GPAs in my class coming out. And because I applied myself, I didn't have the distractions of, earlier in life.
You're like, I'm already married, perfect, less distractions, or maybe more distractions now with 4 kids.
Yeah, but I think when you're older and you learn to see things a little bit differently, and you're more mature, and I made it a point that I was going to apply myself 100%. And ever since then, I've been able to, I got my dream job. And it was because I didn't give up back then. Things are still possible. You may have to go through, if any of you are out there are like myself and didn't have a perfect GPA coming out of your bachelor's, that's not the end. Like, keep going.
I am firmly in the C's get degrees camp, which Americans are probably not. They're like, be your best self.
No, that's about where I was, yeah.
Ultimately, I think it's about learning and then applying yourself, and things have also evolved in the last decade. One of the things I love about school now is that regardless of your background, a lot of the top schools in the world have programs where you can earn your way in, like Harvard and Stanford and many others. So as long as you can prove yourself and apply yourself, I feel like there's way less barriers to entry in your way than before, which if you were like me, and sounds like you with not the best grades, because you had other stuff going on, I think it's an amazing way where you can still achieve your dreams.
I love that too. Because if the school I went to didn't have that, then I don't know that I would, kind of be where I am today. And it was to be able to go on that, to be able to prove myself, through that probation year. And I put in 110%. And I coming out of the master's program, and I was very proud of where I ended up in the end. But it's because I didn't give up.
So we've learned a little bit about your upbringing. Can you tell me a bit more about your career?
Sure. Yeah. So when I was in high school, I saw a movie called Apollo 13 with Tom Hanks. And I remember watching that movie, and maybe it did the opposite for me, but it probably should have scared me from ever wanting to be an astronaut because of the situation they encountered. But I decided after I saw that movie, I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to do that. Maybe scary is not the right word, but you're going into the unknown a little bit, and I wanted to do that. And so, and what also inspired me about that movie were the engineers back on Earth that were trying to figure out a solution to the problem that they had up there in the space capsule. And so they were piecing together parts and stuff, if you've ever seen the movie, and it just, the quickness that they went about it, and they pulled together as a team, and like nothing was off the table. And it was just, to me, that was a very inspiring movie. And so I went home and I started looking at the biographies of astronauts. Like, how could I do that? A very methodical process I went through. And it looked like most of them had an engineering degree, or they were pilots in the military. And so I decided I was going to follow in their footsteps. And I was going to join the Air Force. And I was going to get an engineering degree. I wanted to be a mission specialist. I didn't have a pilot's license. And so I figured that's another way to get in, is to be a mission specialist on the shuttle. And so I applied for an ROTC scholarship with the Air Force. And I put in that I wanted to be an astronautical engineer. And I got my letter back, and it said, congratulations, they wanted me for an Air Force ROTC scholarship, but it was going to be electrical engineering, not astronautical engineering. And it kind of took me back for a minute, but it's what the military needed at the time. They needed electrical engineers for whatever reason. And so I was just so excited to get the scholarship, and so no arguing there at all. And so I started looking at electrical engineering jobs. And it's actually a pretty awesome field to get into. Very versatile, and a lot of opportunities out there for electrical engineers. And so I was slated to go to Purdue University with that ROTC scholarship. And then life took a little bit of a turn for me. I ended up deciding not to go to Purdue. I went to a small school in Evansville, Indiana instead. I really liked the smaller campus feel, and I decided that that's where I wanted to go. It was a good fit for me. And so I ended up having to turn down my scholarship, though, because they didn't have an ROTC unit at the time in Evansville. But in replace of that, they were able to work with me, and I got an engineering scholarship. But I stuck with electrical engineering to go there. And it was a great education. No regrets at all. And that's one thing that I guess I'll probably say a few times in this podcast is no regrets. Everything I do, I always try to put myself on the other side of that decision. Like, would I regret this if it doesn't work out the way I want it to? And if I feel like I would regret it, then I won't do it. And so I always try to do things that no matter the outcome, I'm still going to be happy with. And it's worked well for me. But I no regrets going to that university, and the scholarships all worked out in the end.
I think your college is very proud of you too. I've read an article they wrote about you and the amazing stuff that you're working on at NASA on their university pages.
I hope I'll get an opportunity to get back out to the university there and maybe speak to some of the engineering students and stuff, because the education was great. It was really good, and I got my electrical engineering degree. I think my parents thought I was throwing my life away, turning down the ROTC scholarship, because it was a full ride, to a very good university. But I just always thought, no, this is what I need to do. And it's going to be okay, Mom and Dad. In the end, I ended up going in the military anyways. I got my degree, and the military has opportunities through their officer training schools. If you get a degree, you can apply for them. And that's exactly what I did. I got my electrical engineering degree, and I applied for officer training school in Maxwell Air Force Base, Alabama. And I got accepted, and that, I think for me, going into the military, that has opened up so many opportunities and so many relationships I've been able to hold on through the years. But going into the military changed my life.
So you got your degree, and then you ended. So you got your degree and then did your officer training. And then how did you end up, working with spy planes and on warships and doing some of that crazy stuff?
When you're in an officer training school, you get to fill out what's called a dream sheet, and you put the places you want to be assigned to. And I think I put on there what everybody puts on there, Florida, like the really nice locales. And what came back was Robins Air Force Base in Georgia. And it's just, you can put on your dream sheet where you want to go, but in the end, it's where the military needs your skill set. Yeah. And so there was a need for electrical engineers to go to Robins, and it was to go work in the intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance office there. And so you salute and say, yes, sir, and you take your assignment. And it turned out when I got there on site is when you really find out what you're going to do. And they assign a mentor to you. And I learned I was going to work on the U-2, which has been around for a very long time, and also the Global Hawk, an unmanned spy plane. But what was really cool about it is my dad was a crew chief on the U-2. And it's a very small community. The U-2 is not a very well-known program. But the mission that they have is amazing. And to have my dad him having been a crew chief on that. And I remember going out to the flight line and getting placed on the wing of a U-2 when I was, 8 years old or so. And we have pictures of that, and he's standing there next to it. And so we have these pictures of me as a little girl on this plane that someday I would get to work on myself. It's pretty amazing. But the U-2, its mission is one that's so unique and so cool. I got to do electronic warfare on it. So even though they fly super high, above 70,000 feet, there's still a chance they could the pilot could be in danger of getting shot down by a surface-to-air missile from our adversaries. And so my job was to keep that pilot safe and to keep the aircraft safe. And so it's a lot of spy versus spy type thing where you're always looking at the surface-to-air missiles, and you're figuring out a way to spoof it or to trick it or to jam it from being able to detect the airplane. And so they're shooting electronic signals up at you, and you're doing the same back to them. And it's a constantly evolving world to be in too, because the adversaries may change some of the circuitry or some of the signals coming in. And then you're having to figure out, okay, what just changed in this, and how do I adjust our system now to counter that? And it was always on your feet. And but in the end, it's the mission that really stays in my heart. That mission was to keep that pilot safe, and we were able to do it.
This sounds amazing and very fulfilling, but at the same time, it just sounds so far-fetched to me. Like, it's what people do in movies rather than in real life, and like this is your real life.
Oh my gosh, it's so cool. Yeah. I'm so grateful for that opportunity. I was in it for a little over 4 years. I did my commitment, and I was offered the same job that I was doing just as a civilian. And so I decided, in my life at the time, I just gotten engaged, and I thought, this is a good place to work. I love the job. And so I ended up getting out of the Air Force and getting my same job back just as a civil servant, working for the government as an engineer. And shortly after I did that, the Navy reached out to me and said, hey, we just bought the Block 10 Global Hawks. So these were the first generation Global Hawks. And they had just bought them from the Air Force. And they're like, we saw you have experience working on them. Would you like to come work for us on the Navy side? And I said, sure. So I ended up I moved from Georgia to Maryland, which is where they had these Global Hawk planes. They called them BAMs, broad aerial maritime surveillance systems. And so it was the very same planes I worked on the Air Force side, and now I was doing it for the Navy, and just as a civil servant, a government engineer. Great, I loved it. I did that for a number of years, and then I decided to take some time off to raise a family, and I have 4 beautiful children. They are I tell them they were my treasures, and I took time off. I was fortunate enough to be able to do that, and kind of raise them until they were school age. But while I was at home raising them, I had a GI Bill I needed to use before it went away, and the GI Bill provides education, free benefits, and I decided I would get my master's degree with that, and I got it in nuclear engineering of all things. And I did that while I was at home raising them, and I could not focus on that program until they were all in bed. So every night I'd get them all to bed, and then I'd be up until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning doing my studies, and it was intensive. It was a lot. But I ended up getting my degree, my master's degree in nuclear engineering, and I remember the timing was just right. Like, the kids were all now school age, so they could be gone during the day, and I just got my degree. I got my degree on I think it was a Friday or a Saturday, and I'd already had a job lined back up to come in working for the Navy again on that Monday. So I had no break in between graduating and starting up again. But this time around, I had gone on USA Jobs to get to find another job, and I put nuclear in there because that was what I just gotten, my nuclear engineering degree. And what came up was a job working for NAVC, so Navy Sea this time, working for surface ships for the Navy, so carriers and destroyers and just really cool systems. And it was for electromagnetic pulse defense. What had triggered it on my search for nuclear was an EMP attack starts with a nuclear blast in space. And so that's what caught that keyword. And I knew a little bit about EMP, but not as much as, until I got into it. And I thought, man, this is perfect. And it was right across the river from where I lived in Maryland. It was at Dahlgren, Virginia, Naval Surface Warfare Center, Dahlgren. And I got to be part of the EMP group there. And it was amazing. I got to go visit different ships.
Did you just boat across the river to work?
Yes, that was actually a thought, is to get a jet ski and just go bypass the traffic to get into work. I could just boat over there. But I got to go up to Hawaii. I got to go out to San Diego. I got to go to all these places, Norfolk, Virginia, that had the ships, and I got to get harnessed up and climb the mast and check antennas and cables to make sure everything was properly grounded and bonded in case an EMP attack happened, that the mission critical systems inside these ships would be safe from that event. And it was great. I loved the people I worked with, but I really wasn't using my nuclear degree like I wanted to. It was mostly my electrical engineering degree I was tapping back into, because most of the effects coming in, they're all electromagnetic once they come on the surface of the Earth after that nuclear blast happens in space. And so I was worried I would start losing that nuclear knowledge if I didn't get a job that was more directly tied to it. And so I went back on usajobs.gov, and I put nuclear back in there, and this one came up for NASA, fission surface power. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. Like, I thought it was a dream. Like, I don't know if I'll even get this, but I have to at least try. And so I applied for it, I interviewed, and it was funny, the day I interviewed was the day I was going in to get my private pilot's license, my check ride.
Oh my gosh, I would not be able to focus on doing both at the same time. That would be so intense.
I don't know. It just, everything, the timing, and I know that it probably sounds weird, the timing, but just everything lined up, and I was able to maintain the calmness under pressure. You know, I had the interview, and in the background, I think the airport was behind me, and the planes were flying and stuff, and they were like, where are you? And I was getting my check right, but I felt like the interview went well. And then right after that finished, I went and did my check ride. But it was just a lot going on that day. But I think that, I don't know if it helped the interview or whatnot, but just having so many things going on at the same time, able to multitask, and I don't know. Sometimes you have interviews and they don't feel like they went well, but that one, it felt right. And it felt like it really did. And I was just myself, and tried not to overthink it.
And now you get to build a nuclear reactor for the moon so that they can have power up there. You've got to tell me about this whole project because it's pretty wild.
It is. Yeah, it's putting a small nuclear reactor on the moon, is in a nutshell what it is.
And why do they need to do that?
For power. So you could have you could have a habitat up there, you could have rovers and stuff up there, but unless you have a source of power to keep it going, it's just a kind of a black box. You need that power to really get anything out of it and to turn the systems on and to have that long-term sustainability and to be able to be there for a lot longer than just stepping on the surface of the moon. The plan with Artemis is that we want to be there longer and to do a lot more exploration. And so you need a good source of power to do that. And not just any source of power, but you need one that's reliable and that can operate for a really long time without having to be refueled. And so nuclear gives you that option. If you look at the different things that we could put up there for power, it's a really great option. Nuclear systems can operate for decades without having to refuel. If you look at Voyager and Cassini, those are powered off of a nuclear power source, and they're still flying today. They were launched in the 70s and 80s, and it's such an amazing fuel source to be able to utilize. I know that there are concerns with nuclear in the past because if you had highly enriched uranium, you could make a bomb with it. But what we're using today is not highly enriched uranium. It's overall considered safer, and it alleviates proliferation concerns with this material getting in the wrong hands. We're using a lower enriched uranium, and so you can't make a bomb with it. And it's just, I think we have a lot more support today than has been in the past, and we're able to do incorporating some materials in there that enable us to get the same amount of energy out of that lower enriched uranium that we would get otherwise. It does make the system a little bit bigger, a little bit heavier, but we found that it is a feasible option to use the lower enriched uranium. So it's exciting because that's also what's being looked at right now terrestrially here in the world, really, not just the US, but the world. We're looking at small modular reactors and microreactors to go into really remote locations or really extreme environments that it's difficult to bring in diesel fuel, and we want to get away from the carbon stuff in the world. We want to go to help with the climate concerns. And so that is a big momentum right now, is to utilize small reactors, and they are considered a clean source of energy compared to diesel.
And when we were talking previously, the moon has some nuances around like time spent in darkness and those sorts of things, which is why nuclear is the best answer for power. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it is. So certainly we've used solar. You can use solar in space. You have a giant source of power, which, by the way, the sun, you could consider that nuclear too, nuclear source of power. But you have the sun, which can power solar panels. That's an excellent option. But if we end up placed in a habitat where we think there might be ice water, that's in permanently shadowed craters. So a permanently shadowed crater, you're not going to be able to rely on the sun like you would be able to otherwise. And so that's where nuclear comes in. It's a solution to a need where you have to find a source of power independent of the sun. And nuclear gives you that. Nuclear can operate in really cold environments, those extreme environments I mentioned before, without the reliance on the sun or wind. Not that we have wind on the moon, but if you look at maybe Mars where you have dust storms and stuff, nuclear will just keep chugging along regardless of that. And so it's a very attractive option to look at. And then the lunar nights are really long. They're 14 and a half Earth days long. And so you're hoping, with solar that your batteries that are storing that power, that they'll get you through those really long lunar nights. With nuclear, you don't have to worry about that. And maybe at first, though, maybe we are considered a backup source of power, and that's great too. We're able to kind of see the technology up there and prove out the concept and then grow from there. So we call it our first generation system that we're working on right now. That's going to put just 40 kilowatts electric up there. It's not a lot when you compare it to a commercial nuclear power plant here on Earth. That's putting out 900 million watts of energy, 900 megawatts electricity, where we're looking to put 40,000. So not too great, but enough, probably more than enough to do a small habitat or power some rovers, but that's just this first generation. We are looking at extensibility because someday we want to grow the lunar economy and help industry be able to do that. And you're going to need a lot more than 40,000 watts. You're going to need probably up to a megawatt of electricity to support in situ resource utilization, so mining things out of the moon dirt, which is called regolith. And so maybe a future generation of fission surface power is a megawatt reactor. We're working on technologies right now that will get us to that point someday. With Mars, maybe megawatt doesn't make sense. It's a little bit different environment than the moon. So maybe we are smaller, but that would be considered a generation too of fission surface power. I kind of look at it like block upgrades with aircraft, where you have block 10, think of maybe F-16s or something, you have different blocks of them, and you evolve them, and they have different variants of them. I look at that the same way with fission surface power. The system is we're working on the block 10 right now, but maybe a block 20 is the bigger one. Maybe the block 30 is one that's specific to Mars. And we certainly don't want to recreate the wheel like with the Mars one. We want to try to build as much of those hooks into this first generation system now, make it as common as we can so we can leverage more of that investment earlier on.
How many people in the world do you think are working on this right now? Is it hundreds or thousands or less than hundreds?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'd say thousands. And I say that based on some of the conferences I've been to. So I'm a member of the American Nuclear Society, and they have interest from international stakeholders as well. And I've gone to these conferences, so they have a spring meeting, they have a fall meeting, they have an annual conference, and there's thousands of people that attend these. And what I've noticed, being the project manager for fission surface power, is we have a lot of interest from industry, from companies, and companies you would not think, they're coming out and saying, oh, we're interested. When you go to release the RFP or the request for proposals for this system, we want to bid on it. They want to have a stake in this. And just about I'm trying to think, so coming out of the DoD, we have defense companies, and they see commonalities with what's going on the defense side, where looking at small reactors, this is a very enabling technology. It's kind of game changing, and there's a lot of commonality with what they're investing in within their own corporate dollars and what we're doing on the NASA side. And then you also have Department of Energy coming in too, where they have a stake with terrestrial reactors and microreactors. And so they're watching what we're doing on the NASA investment for fission surface power. We're doing research on materials that are so innovative, that are making our system lighter weight and smaller and able to withstand greater temperatures and withstand corrosion environments. So there's a lot of things that they can leverage with what we're doing on the NASA side, and vice versa. We can see what they're working on too.
Can we talk a little bit about the elephant in the room for a moment? I mean, you have sort of mentioned some things already, but I'd love to just dig into it a little bit more. There have been some disasters, right? And so what about the technology has shifted or evolved? And what would you say to people who might be a little bit worried when they're hearing all of this?
Yeah, so in my spare time, when I'm not flying in my spare time, I teach nuclear technology courses. And one thing that has always stood out to me, and maybe even as I was going through my master's degree with nuclear, is you learn about the disasters that have happened in the past. But there have been a lot of things that have come out of it. You always try to see the positive in every situation. And there are a lot more safety measures in place now than there used to be, and processes and safeguards, even to the fact that there's different levels. Like, I'm just thinking on a commercial nuclear power plant, there are different checks or triggers that happen that are very precautionary in case something starts feeling like it's going to go wrong, that get automatically enacted. And it's just safeguards. And maybe it's too much safeguards, but I don't think so. I think it's to make sure we don't have disasters in the future. And so we look at what has come out of these really sad and unfortunate times, and how can we make this better? And I think right now with this shift to using, we call it HALEU, high assay low enriched uranium, as opposed to systems in the past that have used highly enriched uranium, which is that weapons grade stuff. I think going to that HALEU alleviates a lot of the concerns. And I've noticed we have support from, I feel a lot more support from the public, because we know that this material that we're putting into these reactors, you can't just go and turn it into a bomb, which has been a lot of the concern before. And then with these small reactors too, we still have the same controls. Like we have control drums that help control the reactivity going on, just like a power plant would have control rods. So if something started to go a little bit more active than we want it to, they drop control rods down, and it has neutron poison that will stop the reaction from continuing. And we have the very same safeguards in these reactors as well. They're also quite robust too, which is nice. I don't know if this kind of answers the question or not, but I know for us, as we're working on a reactor, that we have to make sure it's safe as it's going to be on the moon someday. It doesn't actually get turned on until it's on the moon or Mars. But regardless of that, we have to make sure that the technicians, that the workers that are putting this reactor together are going to be safe here on Earth before it even gets up there. And so we have a bunch of standards in place, and there's a lot of, in industry, different standards out there, regulations that have come out, and they are improved based on the bad things that have happened in the past. But there are a number of check marks and balances that we're going to have to do. And we have to run through safety cases, even to the point where, all right, if this is at the launch pad, we have to show that there is like a 0.00000% chance that something bad could happen on this. So the reactors that we send up, they are going to be just by the processes we have to do. We have to show by engineering data, that this is so unlikely to ever have anything go wrong. It'd have to be such a weird, unfortunate series of events that that would ever happen for something to go negative on it. But we look at what has happened in the past, and moving forward with HALEU as a fuel source, I think hopefully will change some of that fear.
What was it about nuclear technology that made you want to pursue it?
So I guess there were two things. The first is when I was coming back, had been at home raising the kids, and I wanted to still stay very competitive. There are a lot more females in electrical engineering than when I first started, and that's awesome. I love that. But I wanted to make myself stand out a little bit more when I was coming back in. And so I looked at what other types of technical degrees could I get that would, that has a little bit of a shortage in that area. And nuclear was one that seems to me, I like challenges. And I thought, wow, like nuclear just sounds harder. And I decided that's what I would do. And then it was the weekend after I went to the Air Force Museum in Dayton, Ohio, and there was an exhibit on nuclear technology in space. And I think it was just maybe a pop-up exhibit, but it touched back on my heart, my love for space, why I even went back in the Air Force to begin with. And I thought, well, maybe that's a sign, like maybe I should do nuclear. And so it was kind of twofold. I wanted to get in a field that had a need and that would keep me very competitive coming back into the workforce. And then also the applications of nuclear in space. To me, it just was a win-win. And I can tell you now, after getting that degree, I loved it. If I would have started nuclear with my bachelor's, I probably would have done that. Yeah. Electrical engineering is great, but nuclear is amazing. Yeah. Like the science behind it and the chemistry. And the funny thing is I hated chemistry when I was in high school. But I think when you're older, you look at life a little different, and you look at things differently. And so I was more focused maybe on the science behind it, but nuclear it's so cool.
Do you think that's because it's easier to learn things when it's in context rather than just learning things because you've been told to and from a textbook?
Yes, and now you can see how it applies. It's not that mindset, well, I don't know, how am I ever going to use this equation again in my life? But when you're older, you can look back and see how it's useful and it's beneficial.
I feel like it's the same with things like flying and baking as well. Like a lot of people end up doing things as adults that involve a lot of maths and science. They were kind of told that they were bad at maths or science at school, but something almost changes or clicks when you're an adult, and it's different when you're applying it in the real world and also to your interests.
What's really great about that is it allows you to think outside the box. You're not so restricted to the equations, and it lets you think of innovative ways to solve things. And sometimes that's what you need. You need somebody can take themselves out of the assumptions, out of the known equations of things, because there is still a lot out there that we assume. Even one of my favorite courses was quantum mechanics, the study of things that are still a little bit unknown, and we set boundaries on stuff based on our own understanding of nature's laws, but what if there's things that we don't quite have right? And there's times you'll read in the news that there's been a breakthrough, and it breaks the way we understand, based on our laws we set on it. But
this sort of reminds me of limiting beliefs and the limits that we put on ourselves, almost like our own glass ceiling that sometimes we don't even see is there until we want or need to smash through it. It's not the world limiting us. Usually it's ourselves.
Yes, exactly. And maybe that's what I love working for NASA too so much, is it really allows, the agency, they really like that out of the box thinking, I think. And I love it. It's a great community to be part of. And you have a lot of resources at hand. And what their mission is in the end is they're breaking the limits, and really pushing the envelope on technologies that we never thought were possible way back when. And they encourage that, and it's really great. And I think that's where a lot of great discoveries come out of. And in the end, the mission is for the benefit of all, not just the US, but what we are able to accomplish at NASA is really amazing, really game-changing. And, we've talked about aviation a little bit. Yeah. And NASA is not just space. And I like to point that out too. They have a really strong aeronautics research side too. Yeah. And it's exciting here in Cleveland, Ohio, at Glenn, we're co-located next to the Cleveland airport. And so
that's where I stayed last night across the road from the Senate. It was so exciting. One of the first things I did when I arrived from Houston was go and stand in front of the sign and take some selfies.
Yeah, you can see the NASA Center depending which end of the runway you fly into. But there have been a lot of really great advancements that NASA has done to benefit aviation, glass cockpits, and chevrons on engine cowlings and to kind of keep the noise down. In fact, they're doing the X-59, I think, is the one that's going to tackle the sonic boom that's created, and make it a lot quieter. So there's a lot of really cool things that NASA is setting out after.
You seem like someone that thrives in uncertainty, whereas I struggle a little bit with it. Can you share how you cope with uncertainty and almost thrive in it? Why don't you find it daunting?
Maybe I'm a bit of a risk taker. I don't know. I always like the challenge of something, and maybe it's just part of who I am. I don't like it when somebody tells me something's impossible. I want to prove them wrong. I want to push the bounds of things. I want to experience life in its fullest. I don't know about jumping out of an airplane. I don't know if I'll ever do that, with the parachute. That makes me a little nervous, but I admire those that do. But if I get a thought, I want to pursue that. And there was a time when when I just joined the Air Force, and I saw a TV show with bikers that were racing, with the ninja style bikes, and they were getting way down on their knee, and I thought, I want to do that, and so, what I did? I went to the Suzuki shop, and I went and bought myself a motorcycle, and I learned how to ride it, and you're taking a risk, out there biking and hoping cars don't run into you. But I got such and maybe it's an adrenaline rush too. You get an excitement and a thrill about it. Same with flying. It is a dangerous thing, but you try to do your best. You go through the emergency checklist, and in case anything happened, and you get trained well in that. But I see things as they may be challenges, but to me, everything's overcomable, if that's even a word. It's to me, you gotta have a little bit of faith, and that's there is a quote that I love out at Wright, where the Wright brothers first flew Kitty Hawk, and there's a monument there, and it says, "Achieved by dauntless resolution and unconquerable faith," and I love that quote so much because dauntless resolution means that they were going to do it no matter what. And unconquerable faith, that they weren't going to let anybody tell them that flight couldn't be possible. And they continued, and they went for it. And that's kind of my life mantra.
And so when you're challenged, do you say that to yourself? I don't know, it kind of reminds me a bit of a zigzag in a way where you're like, oh, I feel challenged. Is this possible? Is it not? I'm going to zigzag until because my belief is such, and then I think it's possible. So how do I get there? Yeah.
So if one door closes, if I go down a path to achieve that, and a door shuts in front of me, I'm going to find another path. Exactly. It's a zigzag. I'm going to try to. I'm not going to give up on it. I'm not going to be like what was the cartoon, the Roadrunner? You might not the Roadrunner. There was a coyote and the Roadrunner. This was back when I was growing up, and he would. Let's see, the coyote was always trying to catch the Roadrunner, and he would set up these traps for him. And then the Roadrunner would either just not go through the trap, and then the coyote would give up. And I kept thinking, you should try that again. Figure out what went wrong and maybe redirect the Roadrunner to go into your trap instead of just giving up and trying a whole new thing. And so I feel sometimes I don't want to be the coyote. I want to, okay, let's catch the Roadrunner. Let's do what we need to. We need to improve on why it didn't work. Let's improve on that instead of giving up completely. Yeah, exactly. I like how you said it. It's like a zigzag. And to me, if one door shuts, I'm going to try to find another way in. I'm going to try to find that crack that will let me achieve it.
You had a lot of interests. Can you tell me how you focus and prioritize your attention in working towards your dreams?
I do have a lot of interest. I do. So for me, the only way I can truly focus, and I know everybody's a little bit different how they do it, but I have to completely zone out. I have to almost build these walls in my mind that keep everything else out. And so, and if sometimes it's as simple as just getting in my truck in the parking, like in my driveway, and shutting the doors, and it's a really good new truck. And so there's like very soundproof, and I cannot have any sounds going on in the background, but it allows me to it's almost like a meditation state where I can be completely separated from all the noise and everything going on outside of me to focus in on what I need to do. So whether it's a focus on a challenge going on at work, I do that, and I'll have I'll have my phone with me. So my phone is how I keep notes to myself and action items I need to do. And so I'll just really focus, and then I'll just type notes in as they come to my mind, so I don't forget them later. That's one technique that helps me. And for me, what always, family comes first. Like I love my kids. I have to be careful that I don't let work come first before them. And that's easy to do, especially when you get in a job that you truly love. I always have to make sure, like my kids, and they know that I travel a lot, and they know that I'm always calling them every day and making sure they know I'm still there. I'm still mom. I'm still there. It's a balance you have to do, but always family first. I love my job, and it's easy to get pulled in 100% into that.
I am completely the same, and I have a bit of a mantra that helps me prioritize and focus. It's we, me, world. If we take this trip, for example, 3 weeks on the road, away from my family and a lot of my healthy habits, and of course my bed, it'd be really easy to be myopically focused on my goal and not worry about home. But I want to be connected and bring my people along the journey with me. I'm flying to a new city every day, meeting and recording with people. How the mantra works in practice is when I have 5 minutes, I start with the we. I check in with my husband and my mom and my people, send them photos, maybe a quick phone call. And then I check in with myself. What do I need? Water, food, sleep, get in a quick workout, some of that basic human being stuff.
Yes.
Look after my needs next so that I can sort of function and thrive. And then lastly, I take care of the world, things like email and social media, etc. It would be so easy to waste time and be so focused on the goal and doom scroll on Instagram, but instead I focus my attention on what matters most. I think why I love the mantra is that you really have to put things in perspective and ask yourself what is important. So while a lot of people say put your own oxygen mask on first, I sort of like the mantra in this scenario, because being connected with my people is so much more important than my email, and I can always eat later.
I love that though. We, me, world. I will remember that.
I think one of the reasons why I came up with this mantra, I think there's an element of being a human being where we all just want to be seen. And when we've got busy jobs and busy lives, sometimes we don't see our people. And so I think that can be a little bit hard for them. And I want them, if I want to be seen, I want them to feel seen too.
Oh, I love that.
You steal those. Okay, now we're going to do a quick fire round. It's something that I do with all of my Bountiful podcast guests. What, in your opinion, is the most underrated fruit or vegetable?
The pineapple. The pineapple. I love pineapple pizza, and I know there's a lot of people that don't, but it's so delicious.
I am a pineapple on pizza fan. What was the worst meal that your parents made you eat?
Fish sticks. I don't like seafood very much. I love to fish, but I don't like to eat it. And I just hated fish sticks.
Yeah. Fish is a common one across the podcast, interestingly, especially fish pie.
Yeah.
What word describes your life?
I would say fulfilled.
And what are you most proud of?
My kids.
Do you have any tenets or principles that you live by?
Honesty. be honest.
What is one thing that's really mattered in your life that maybe you didn't realize mattered as much at the time?
The sacrifices my dad did being in the military.
And what is something that you thought mattered but realized actually didn't?
I took trips that, and not necessarily on the NASA side, but when I was, before I joined NASA, that I thought were so important I had to be at. And in the end, they weren't that important. And I missed some kind of key milestones with my kids because of them.
I have a few final questions. One of them is, you're so overwhelmingly positive. What do you do when the chips are down or you're having a bad day? And do you even have bad days?
Oh, I do. When I get super stressed and when I get sad, this might sound kind of cheesy. I start cleaning. So people know I'm stressed. When I start cleaning, people know I'm stressed. But I end up doing things that are kind of mindless that take my mind off of the thing that's bringing me down. Because when you're done cleaning a room, you have instant satisfaction. You know, you can see the results of what you just did. Or I will go and a favorite thing of mine was to be out in nature. And so when I lived in Maryland, I got to live on the Potomac River, and I would just watch the water. It's very calming to me, and it lets me detach myself from the things that are stressing me out and refocus my energy.
We share a few similarities. I also like fishing, and I also clean when I'm stressed.
Oh, really?
Or processing things.
Yeah. When the house is really clean, it's me that I'm very stressed.
Before I left, I just went into cleanup mode and started making lists. My husband just started giggling because he just knew exactly what zone I was in.
Okay.
This is a bit of a cheeky question, but coming full circle, we're on the Bountiful podcast. What do you think a bountiful lunar economy could look like?
Oh my goodness. So what I can see happening is NASA is kind of seeding that technology to get a reliable source of power up there. Down the road, I mentioned a lunar economy, and I can see where industry comes in and they take a more prominent role. So then NASA kind of takes a back seat, you know, and we can see industry coming in and being able to do in situ resource utilization. So maybe you could start 3D, you even get into the point where you can 3D print things on the surface of the moon instead of waiting for a shipment to come from Earth. And I can almost see like a bustling little economy going on up there, and you have these robots and you have rovers, and they are just chugging away, and almost like there's a Lego set out there that I've seen, and it's got all these little rovers and like dirt movers and stuff, and I can almost vision that up on the moon, and the things that we'll be able to kind of establish, and almost like a little city in a way, and a large power grid. And then you could even kind of use that as a base, as a launching board to then go on to exploring other planets, you know, from the moon. And we'll be able to do some resource utilization, maybe even on asteroids that come zoom by, you know, or something. You could just use the moon becomes kind of that base camp, and then just
it's like the Antarctica of space exploration.
Yeah, exactly. And then I started thinking, my favorite movie is Interstellar, and I started thinking about that. Like, what if we discover like a wormhole, you know, or something that I don't know. I just love the unknown with space and what we're going to discover, because I know there's so many things out there that you just feel it, you know, you feel it in your gut that there's so many exciting things to come with space.
So beginning to wrap up, what are you excited about with the future potential of space, nuclear reactors, nuclear power, and how they contribute to our exploration?
Yeah, so with nuclear power, I mentioned earlier, it's such an enabling technology. The things that we'll be able to do with nuclear power. Fission surface power is just one of those first steps for future applications of nuclear power in space. So you could take the reactor that we're developing right now, and you could put it on a platform and go nuclear electric propulsion. So you could go study deep space. You can go out to the far reaches with nuclear electric propulsion. It's kind of like the the hybrid or the Prius vehicle, where you're not having to expend so much energy at first. It kind of coasts. You have a really high miles per gallon with nuclear electric propulsion, and so you can go really far with it. And what we're developing on fission surface power, the technology investments are going to be applicable for nuclear electric propulsion down the road. And to me, that's very exciting.
As a future astronaut.
Yeah, as a future astronaut. And I will sign up to go and repair the reactor someday. I'm just, just saying.
Is there any final myths you'd like to dispel about nuclear technology or nuclear energy?
I guess maybe for those that are afraid of it, I would just say, don't be so much. I know that's a hard ask. But there's been a lot of developments and advancements over the decades with nuclear technology that these systems are much safer than they used to be. And we have safety in mind for the nuclear technician, or for my application, making sure the astronaut's going to be safe up there. There's so many material advancements that have happened. Just shielding in itself is so much better. It turns out with the moon application, the moon dirt is a really excellent shield of nuclear radiation. So we're going to try to take advantage of that if we can. But I would just say with the advancements, being able to use this high assay low enriched uranium, being able to kind of look at small reactors and get them in places that need energy and that aren't able to rely on diesel coming in all the time and all that. It's the benefits are they're so great. And I hope that we get a lot more support for it because it really can make that difference between, where you can be truly much more energy independent. So you're not stuck, and I think it'll make life just better all around.
Thank you so much, Lindsay, for coming on the Bountiful podcast and sharing your incredible story and career with us. And obviously your optimistic and positive attitude for life. Your energy is so abundant. I really hope that your projects go really well and that you can get to live your dream one day of being an astronaut. To all of you tuning in from around the world, thank you for listening. If you found this episode interesting, please leave us a review, follow us, or subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. We also have an amazing newsletter, so please go and sign up for it. The links for that and to Lindsay's work will be in the show notes. And we'll be back next week with another amazing episode with another incredible guest contributing to our understanding of what it means to live an amazing life. Thanks so much, and bye for now.
Thanks.